Good morning, everybody. This is Marty from Dog's Blog in the noontime report of the morning session of the Frank Carson et al. Trial, October 30th, 2018. Tomorrow's Halloween. I get to actually take my mask off tomorrow. Anyway, this court was scheduled to start, I believe, at 10 o'clock. Some say 9 o'clock. There was a lot of confusion this morning. Anyway, the judge was late. So the jury didn't come up until 10:16. Judge on the bench at 10:21. On the stand was DOJ agent Jay Hemiel. I hope I pronounced that right. Marlissa Ferrer was still doing direct. She had some pictures, number 701 to 705. And they were pictures of a blue tarp. 701 is a picture of a blue tarp on the ground, but did not find any blood whatsoever on that tarp. At 702 was the edge of the blue tarp, and there was some Christmas lights that looked like they were attached to that edge of the tarp. It's right in the corner. 703 was the same thing, with just a different view of the same thing. 704 was the back view of the tarp from the different direction, and then the 705 was the tarp turned over. He said there was lights randomly put on the tarp as if Christmas lights had been on the display of some sort at one time. No soil samples, he said, were taken due to the incident allegedly occurred 3 years prior to that date, so none were taken. And the time lapse creates changes in variables in the soil, the weather, everything has an effect on it. She had some more pictures that he had put together. He had put several pictures together, and instead of doing like a panoramic view, he took the pictures that he had and he put them together for some reason. And he combined many images together into one. First there was some on 9th Street, and then there were some at the Pop and Cork on E Street. There were some objections. Some of the pictures, for some reason, I don't know what that objection was. They went to sidebar, and there was actually multiple objections on that. So there was the pictures that were put together with the wall and the fence. He used anywhere from 3 to 5 pictures and put them together. It showed the alley, the lot, the wall, the fence at Pop and Cork. Judge Inigo had to ask a question for Marlissa because she couldn't, get the basic questions out about the way he took the pictures and stuff. And then there were some on 9th Street that were taken, 3 to 5 images merged. There may have been one that had 6 images, but mostly showed the containers, the back lot, the fence line, the barn, and the double-decker bus, at least in part. And Marlissa Ferrer had no more questions. Percy Martinez asked if the .22 caliber bullet found, if it was fired from a rifle. He said he was not sure, but he did track it back to Marlin's, and to his knowledge, Marlin does not make any handguns, only rifles. There was no pistols in the database that fits all the requirements if there was a handgun, and he did not know if Corey Kaufman was allegedly killed with a handgun or not. He did not have any pictures on 2012 to do any comparisons of the pictures that he had taken and put together. In 2015, he was requested this is at 9th Street, I believe, he was requested to take pictures not assigned for any type of trace evidence. So they didn't think they had any trace evidence on the scene. They just wanted him to take some pictures. The next day, he arrived at Pop and Cork at about 10:25 a.m. Robert Woody arrived around 11:40 a.m. and he gave him the spot to dig. And after pointing out to the other officer, he didn't point out to him, the witness. They pointed it out to the officers, the investigators, and that's where he started probing. He said the witness, they didn't really actually say Robert Woody's name. They kept saying the witness or the person pointing out and so on. Said the body was wrapped in a tarp and he had cut the fingers and the toes. Also told that the whole area that was dug up at one time previously with a backhoe. He used his metal rod to detect soft dirt. This backhoe, he said, would have torn up the soil enormously, loose soil. And he said there was a lot of loose soil and there was a lot of garbage in the area that he was doing the dig. He said he came to harder dirt, but not sure if it was hard pan. He'd gotten to very hard dirt, though, is the way he had put it. I know the bottom of the hole was ever disturbed. There was also he encountered a pipe that ran through the one end of the pole. There was a pipe that they'd come across. Yeah, he was not sure if it was an energized line or if it had water or gas on it. To me, when I saw the picture, it looked like a gas line, but I can't really tell for sure. He didn't know if it was live or where it goes. He did not check to see where the pipe came from, nor where it goes to. He says the T-bar that he uses is a suggestive method, and that he has to just keep repeating, putting his body weight on it to determine soft soil or not. He was asked if the research of the bullet had given any, I can't read my notes, research of the bullet, any gunfire from the bullet in that area. He says no, there was no indication of anything there. He did not probe any other areas of the light. He's also asked about tarps. When they decompose, they fall apart, and they get old, that they leave little fibers laying around. He says there was, they leave particles in there everywhere, but he did not see any of that material in the hole. There's no indication that a tarp was ever there. He measured the holes, the depth of the holes when done around the pipe, and also around the pipe where it was asked if it was more loose around the pipe, and he said not really. But he never really measured the depth of the holes. He did stick a measuring tape or something down there. He said it was about roughly 2 feet. That's all the best he would do, because it's different throughout the hole, I guess. It took 3 DOJ workers, took about 5 hours to dig the hole. They did not take any pictures of a ruler or tape measuring the hole. He was never given any specific dimensions, like a description of size, weight, and such of Corey Coffman. Looking at the notes to see if he ever given description of Corey Coffman, he's unable to locate in his notes in his binder in front of him. He didn't really know if there was room to lay a body in that hole, or they did not have anybody lay in the hole themselves for demonstration purposes or take pictures of that. Again, he was asked about it. It took 5 hours with 3 people constantly working on the hole. Remember, this is soft dirt, not the hard dirt. And he left the hole open afterwards. He did not fill it back in. And there was also a large number of trash items in that hole, so apparently garbage had been thrown in there before. Percy and Martinez had no further questions. Hans started questioning him about what kind of training and experience he has in scenes in soil like this, excavation, and he said he had thousands of hours experience in scenes in the soil. I also asked about the many pieces of literature that he had read. He had talked about some of these earlier. And he said there was a publication about excavations in soil and something like that. I forget the exact name of it. but he had referred to that in his training. The hole was dug in the southeast part of the lot. He says in excavating and training, his experience is about 150 hours. He's been involved in three excavations with a total of about 30 to 50 hours total. He does not keep track how many times he's testified as an expert in firearms, which is very unusual if you're going to testify in court. You have to keep track. As experts, have to keep track of all the times that they testify in court. That's part of the qualification to keep testifying as an expert. On 8/14 of 2015, he did it. He assisted law enforcement officers at Parpencork. He had no idea where the hole was to be dug. They were waiting for somebody to come tell them. The equipment he brought was shovels, sifters, probes, stakes. No ground pending trading radar, he said he did not have available. This is the Department of Justice, did not have GPR available. He used a T-bar. It's a metal rod with a pointed end on one end. It goes into the ground. It's a T-handle on the top, and he puts his weight on it to determine where they're going to test. He said there were no gauges or any type of detectors or anything of that sort on the probe or the T-bar to check for density in the soil. There's no core sampler available. The Department of Justice also doesn't have a soil core sampler, according to him. He was told that this hole had been dug some time back for trash. And originally it was told by Robert Woody that it was about 2 feet down. And he was going to dig for an unknown death until he discovered that. He also had said he had 1 page of handwritten notes from the scene itself, and he had to look it up in binder. And he said that the notes said Robert Woody said the hole was 2 feet deep, so he dug 10 to 14 inches and quit when he hit hard dirt. He also said there was numerous impressions in the lot, and Robert Woody had said they had been dug to bury trash. He did not recall hearing any dogs barking, and asked if he needed to refresh hearing a recording of the scene with Robert Woody. And the DA objection. Hans had stepped out for Marlissa Ferrer to listen to that recording. They had a sidebar, then they had a second sidebar. Finally, Hans goes up, approaches a witness. It's about a 15-second recording that he's listening to. It's just part of the whole overall recording that they make. And the witness was listening to the recording, and he said he did hear dogs barking in the neighbor's yard. At Popencork, he was in charge of the probe, the T-bar probe, after Robert Woody pointed to the general area for them to probe. He cannot test precisely where Robert Woody, he cannot testify precisely where Robert Woody said to check. He's not sure exactly where he said, so he just started checking around the area when he pointed in the area. He also noted he cannot say exactly where he started checking with the T-bar. He didn't have a colleague or anybody document where the probe was used. Hans referred to the publication that says they have an associate document where all probes and soil compositions and the differences noted. And he originally did not remember that part of the book that he had kept referring to earlier. And he also said there was a minimum of 2 layers that they had gone through when they did that dig. the upper layer that was about 2 inches down from the top of the soil. The rest of it was a second layer. Could have been more. He wasn't sure. He was asked if a core probe could have detected different layers and compare it to the rest of the yard, and if he had found in the softer areas any impressions that he noted that were there already. It could have been a comparison done. He did not do that. Says they didn't have a probe available. He was not sure how many times he had probed the ground or exactly where again with the T-bar. And he did not, the T-bar does not have any type of measuring marks, doesn't have any type of ruler or tape measure or anything like that, even marks on the bar itself for depth. So he doesn't know how deep he was going down, inside or outside the dig area. He also did not check any other area of the yard. He did not take any vegetation up anywhere else in the yard to look at the soil. And no other areas of the lot were checked on the surface with the T-bar. In addition, there was no moisture checks on the soil due to, in reference, he said, the book. Hans asked him about the book, reaffirmed talks of checking moisture of the area of the digs. That was not done. And so, again, Hans had to show him the section of that book that he referred to in regards to checking moisture. He said that there should be color and moisture and other factors to evaluating whether samples could be done or going any further. He didn't, none of these. There was no obvious holes when he arrived. He waited for just Robert Woody to come point. He didn't write a report concerning the dig for 6 months. The report was written approximately 6 months later. And he had met with Marlissa Farah on a couple of occasions prior to writing his report after the dig. He also determined it had been too long of a period of time to get any good samples, soil samples or anything in regards to forensics or DNA or blood due to degradation. It had been almost 3 years or over 3 years. And so Hans started asking him about how long would it take for degradation to occur. And he said, depends on the sample, depends on a lot of variables there. And you have to look at the visual indicators, and he determined not to do it here. He also said soil inhibits getting good samples. He was also not able to give precise or any kind of guesstimation when the previous hole was dug at that scene. Again, he was asked if there was 2 layers or more that could be there. And the first layer was 2 inches, but it was not measured again. And from 2 to 14 inches, there could be another layer or more. He didn't know for sure. He was also asked if, said he was told prior that roller tilling had occurred and a garden had put in, and that would also affect the consistency of the layers. That's where we broke for lunch. We're coming back at 1:30. We still have Hans to finish up his cross, and then Jai Gohel, and then Marlissa Ferreira will be doing some redirect, I'm sure. Don't forget the podcast tonight at 6 o'clock.